Today, let's talk about something that touches every single one of us: suffering. Whether we recognize it or not, much of our lives is shaped by our relationship to suffering. We work hard to avoid it, to fix it, or to escape it. We blame others for it, or we blame ourselves. But have we ever stopped to ask, what is suffering? Where does it come from? And is there a way to live beyond it? Suffering is not just pain. Pain is something natural, something unavoidable in life. You stub your toe, you lose a loved one, you feel the ache of a broken heart. That's pain. But suffering? Suffering is something else entirely. Suffering is the story we build around pain. It's the resistance, the clinging, the why me, and the this shouldn't be happening. Pain is the fact. Suffering is what we add to it. Buddha described this beautifully with his metaphor of the two arrows. Imagine being struck by an arrow. That's the first arrow, the unavoidable pain of life. But then, Buddha says, we shoot ourselves with a second arrow. This second arrow is the suffering we create when we resist the pain, when we demand that it go away, when we make it personal. The first arrow hurts, but the second arrow is what truly pierces the soul. And here's the radical truth. The second arrow is optional. Let's look at resistance because it's at the heart of suffering. When pain arises, whether it's physical or emotional, our first instinct is to push it away. This shouldn't be happening. I don't deserve this. How can I make it stop? But have you noticed that resisting pain doesn't actually make it go away? In fact, it makes it worse. The more you resist, the tighter the grip of suffering becomes. It's like quicksand. The harder you struggle, the deeper you sink. Why does resistance cause suffering? Because when we resist, we're fighting reality. Pain is already here, but we add to it by rejecting it, by demanding that reality be different from what it is. And here's the thing, reality always wins. Resistance is a battle we can never win because it's a battle against what's already happening. Think about that for a moment. Life will bring you the first arrow. There's no escaping it. Pain is part of the human experience. But the suffering, the second arrow, comes from how we react to that pain. And most of us don't realize we're the ones holding the bow. Now let's talk about clinging, because it's the other side of the same coin. If resistance is fighting what we don't want, clinging is grasping for what we do want. We cling to pleasure, to comfort, to security, to certainty. And when these things slip away, as they inevitably do, we suffer. Clinging creates suffering because it sets us up for disappointment. Life is change. Everything we hold on to is eventually taken from us. Relationships, possessions, even our own bodies. Clinging is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you grasp, the faster it slips away. This is where many people get confused. They think that to stop suffering, they need to stop feeling. But that's not it at all. Pain is not the problem. Hardship is not the problem. Suffering comes from the way we fight pain and cling to what we want. And here's the radical truth. When you stop resisting and stop clinging, pain can still be there, but the suffering falls away. What's left is just life, raw and immediate, without the mental storylines that make it unbearable. Let's make this more concrete. Imagine you lose a job. That's the first arrow. It's painful, disappointing. But then the second arrow comes in. I'm such a failure. How could this happen to me? What will people think? These thoughts swirl around, making the pain worse. The resistance to what has happened, the clinging to how things should have been. This is where the suffering is born. But what if you didn't shoot the second arrow? What if you simply felt the disappointment without turning it into a personal tragedy? What if you let the pain be without resisting it or attaching a story to it? Here's another example. Imagine you're in physical pain. Maybe you've injured your back. The pain is real. It's the first arrow. But notice what happens when you add resistance. I can't take this. This is ruining my life. The pain becomes unbearable, not because the sensation has changed, but because of the mental and emotional layers you've added. Now imagine simply feeling the pain without resisting it. It's not easy, but if you try, you might find that the suffering begins to soften, even if the pain remains. What about hardship? Life is full of challenges: loss, illness, rejection. Hardship is inevitable, but suffering is not. Hardship is the natural ebb and flow of life. Suffering is the belief that life shouldn't be this way, that you've been wronged, that you need to control everything to be happy. When you see the difference, you can face hardship with clarity and strength, without being pulled into the spiral of suffering. Let's return to Buddha's 2 arrows. The first arrow, pain, is unavoidable. It's life touching you. The second arrow, suffering, is how you touch life. And here's the most important part. The second arrow is in your hands. You can choose to put it down. This is not about denying pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about seeing that pain doesn't have to turn into suffering. It's about realizing that what makes life unbearable is not the pain itself, but the way we hold it. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent to life. Letting go of resistance doesn't mean you don't take action to ease pain or improve your circumstances. It means you stop fighting what's already here. You move with life, not against it. And in that movement, there's freedom. So what does it mean to live without suffering? It doesn't mean living without pain. It means living without the illusion of control, without the constant push and pull of resistance and clinging. It means being present with whatever arises: joy, sorrow, pleasure, pain, without adding a story to it, without fighting it or grasping at it. It means meeting life as it is, raw and unfiltered, and discovering that you can rest in that, no matter what comes your way. This is the heart of the matter. Suffering is not a punishment. It's not something life imposes on us. It's something we create, and because we create it, we can let it go. This doesn't mean life will always be easy or that pain will disappear. But it does mean we can meet life with an open heart, without fear, without resistance, and without the heavy burden of suffering. And in that, there is freedom. This isn't something to achieve, it's something to notice. Right now, in this moment, there may be pain in your life. But is there suffering? Look closely. Is there a story you're telling yourself about how things should be? Is there resistance or clinging adding weight to what you're feeling? If so, what happens if you let it go, even for a moment? What happens if you let the pain be just pain without turning it into something bigger?